Not much, man. Man, if you don't get out of here. Wear some socks. Shoes on. There you go.
That's why you should definitely publish your, I believe this works, by 20 articles, something else.
Slow, bro. I'm about to play one now. What? Yeah, it's like it's a playlist. So you could on YouTube you can set it up to you can make a playlist and they have a list of videos for that playlist. So like if you got albums, they'll have the individual song that they made each video, and then they'll just put them in that playlist, the album in the playlist. Because basically it just did that, but it mixed it. So it take like a lot of the music that I've listened to in the past before, and YouTube will make its own mix through like an algorithm. So it's doing that right now.
It's midnight.
It's crazy, bro.
Now you got those that say what the people want to hear. And then you got those that say what need to be said. And then you have those that say what the Father told them to say. Yeah. Rappers becoming spiritual leaders. Now by our own admission, we got our ears to the people. When they don't physically see you, but they still feel you in the spirit that's bigger than achievements. This is for those who pick up the scripture and read it. For those who never read and considered we need it. Lately I've been trying to find a perfect balance. Creativity and making sure his word is established through these verses and ad-libs. If the message is turning you backwards, the way we work is backwards. It's deeper than memorizing these verses and chapters. Are we learning the Bible to tell it or learning to practice? Circumcision of heart. Are we playing the part or living the part? Just give it a thought. Is that living water purging your soul? Or are you just repeating the words you were told? Are we gonna put on this show to the current that's closed and every work is exposed? You might fool the eyes of men, just know that he's watching. So if it don't please Abba, let's detox it. Some say they know the laws of our fathers, but when we offer the knowledge, they say we arguing doctrine. And we causing a problem, no scripture to back it up. They just want to stop talking about it. Emotionally driven, we don't even listen. Many people I assume got holy intentions, but they adore the attention and really want your position. When people view you in a higher esteem than you see yourself, it's hard to tell if they hide in the scheme. The line is blurred between the truth and the industry. It's getting harder to tell who woke and who's still asleep. spirit of pride and competition that won't enter me. They lashing out at you, cause they lacking the peace. Look, I don't spend these 16s to get streams or talk down on others like I'm pristine, like I always been clean. I'm more focused on what these scripts mean. Teaching my people to get off Roman time, to keep the true feast of Shabbat so they won't align. With the Moedim, there's so much on the line. The last thing they can do is tweak the algorithm, report every post. They want you not to listen, but they can't stop it. Listen here, Abba gave us understanding, now we see the scripture clear. And we on the net with hooks and lines like it's the fishing pier. And we back on track, you know the savior is the engineer. Negroes waking up and they hate it, they can't interfere. And we on that sound doctrine, don't got engineers. Stiff neck, don't want correction, that's what our issue is. We read the prophets so we see the future and it's crystal clear, no witchcraft. All Torah, we not holding back. In this live changing over this music, it's more than rap. We gon' stack treasures up in heaven till they overlap. Don't do this for the fame or the clout, never wanted that. Truth going out, regardless of who vouching it. We've been in his presence, you can see it on our countenance. Told my young op, you gon' get sealed if you keep blowing up. All they do is read scriptures, used to be like growing up. We tried marching, protesting, singing and dancing. Wonder what would happen if we did these commandments, or if we stopped sinning all at once, what's gonna happen? Young and we on the ancient path, we old fashioned. In our kingdom is whole mansion. Knocking Elijah's questions I want to ask him. I've been writing English from right to left, accident, not dyslexic. Ancient Hebrew, I'm trying to master it. We gotta get back to it. Everything been tampered with. Read the prologue to Ecclesiastes, deception. Sleight of hand, they don't see what's happening. They might try to slap again. Look how good and distracted them. Give them bread and services, they won't reveal that's accurate. Gotta endure this tribulation, ain't no rapture. Glory to the Father, that's the caption. Breaking chains off my neck and off my wrist. Watch for Judas infiltrate you with a kiss. Forefathers dreamt about times like this. At the shores of Babylon, they would sit and reminisce. We've been down bad for a long time. Abba gave us a ladder, we gon' climb. We gon' rise, we gon' shine. Follow Messiah, the power's inside us. We marching to Zion. That's it means so much more when it's pure. Stolen identity. When the Father not your arm, you got limited reach. Still in the streets, Roman soldiers killing the sheep. The Almighty watching close as he sits in the seat. The shepherds beside him. There's an angel with a book who chose to believe and who never decided. In the belly of them ships with a special assignment. I know it's chains on us now, but it's heaven inside us. A generation that'll do what we never accomplished. Returning to the words that he said in his promise. In captivity with Torah, spreading his knowledge. Through faith in Hamashiach, cause his message is honest. There'll be platforms where they can reach millions. Daniel 12 verse 4, a great revealing, a great awakening, rise. Don't stay asleep, children. The solid rock is your foundation. Keep building. One by one, back on the Father's time. The sun and the moon bear witness. Abba providing signs, changing the times and laws. Witness they idols rise. Constantinian rules, but we gon' silence the lies. How to survive, you gon' make it if Abba's your God. Identity crisis, Ruach, breathe life in the tribes. Put your vices aside and let righteousness thrive. Made in his likeness, ain't no dimming the lightness inside. Good or evil, Abba gave us the right to decide. Plan B, already had a sacrifice to provide. 2 BC, you couldn't miss it, a sight in the sky. A star headed east from Shinar, he finally arrived. Year 4000, a virgin gave life to the vine. Deliverance for captives, sight to the blind. I'm convinced it's the spirit that's writing these rhymes. Jacob's ladder, just imagine the height you could climb. I've been waiting all day to get this book. Let's get it. Proverbs. It means so much more when it's pure. You can tell when it's inspired by the Spirit. 22 letters as I open up this scroll. Could've asked for anything, but you want wisdom. That's impressive, he gon' trust you with his riches. Come to this wedding, bring your all, he about to visit. Don't know what's coming, I just know it feel different. 60 seconds to midnight, the last minute. Yeah, this that music you can fast to, study to this. I pray, it's motivation for my brother and sis. Forgive your enemies, they know not what they do. Cause really they don't know who they coming against. Let's study. Wisdom is a principal thing. I read the book. Close up. narrow path and the puzzle.
Why you keep doing that? Why you don't put up on the They got that See on there.
Show us where we going from the prophets that they spoke thousands of years ago. Fast forward, now here we go. Look at us, we illuminate. The looks on my brother's faces. Can't believe we really here, living it. No more pride, no more bitterness. Train our children up in the way that they should go. Maintain your innocence. Do his commandments with diligence. Rest out of the as you've been winning since. You lost your way, you just started
We're getting desperate trouble right now.
Shalom, brother.
All right, beautiful people, beautiful family. This week's Torah lesson will be encompassed by Genesis chapter 32 and Genesis chapter 36, which covers Jacob's reunion with his brother Esau.
You said 32.
I'll just start over because I see we just not ready for it. It's too far. We'll pray. All right, beautiful family, beautiful people. Thank y'all for coming by this week's Sabbath. This week's Torah lesson will be encompassed by Genesis chapter 32 and chapter 36, which will cover Jacob's reunion with his brother Esau, him wrestling with the angel, the renaming of Jacob to Israel, the incident with their sister with Dinah, and the births and deaths of key figures in Torah. So to start, like we always start, we'll go ahead and let Zephaniah go ahead and open up with our Father prayer, and then we'll get to the command. That's all right. Ready to go?
All right, guys. Our Father prayer. Just repeat after me. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thou art the kingdom, and the power, and the glory. Amen.
We was gonna wait until Abe and Will showed up, but Sister Sephora, could you, well, you got to maybe with you. Brother Rob, could you come up and read with us? Is that cool? So first we'll go to chapter, well, I'll give you all the topic. The title today I named it Transformation, Conflict, and Divine Blessings. Transformation, conflict, and divine blessings. said Exodus? Genesis chapter 13. This, for Brother Ricky and Brother Dunbar, the lesson's title is Transformation, Conflict, and Divine Blessings. And then, whenever you're ready, Dunbar, I'll be prayer.
And God's the like the word saying, I am the Lord thy God, which hath brought them from the land of Egypt, out of house of bondage. That's my God formed. That's my name that's the king of the and like this creation that is well, or that is very deep, or that is the more weaker. That's my God after me, or certainly. For I am the Lord thy God, just God. So you make me the causes of the children to bear fortune and hate me, and show mercy, and to tell them that owe me from commandments. That shouldn't take me over as I bang. For the Lord will not hold goodness that takes me in. Verse 7, keep you holy. 6 days will ever do work, but the Sabbath day is the Sabbath day of the Lord thy God. And that shall not doing work, nor son, nor daughter, that minister, nor kill, nor a stranger that's within the gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth to see, and all it is. And rest Saturday, wherefore the Lord blessed Saturday and not all of it. I'm not telling you that days be long upon the land which the Lord hath given thee. Dash kill, dash not commit adultery, dash not steal, dash not murder, false witness sin member, dash not murder in his house, dash not murder in his wife, nor his master, nor his man, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor his thy neighbors.
Thank you, Brother Dunbar. So once again, shalom everyone. This week's lesson follows Jacob, Yaakov, as he prepares to meet his brother, as I mentioned, after many years apart. Along the way, he wrestles with an angel, receives a new name, and faces various trials. This lesson is filled with themes of transformation, repentance, and divine testing, hence the title. This lesson was inspired by Brother Will, who I wish was here today, because that brother was going through some things this week, obviously some personal things, but it was actually perfect how it was set up. This week's Torah portion was kind of correlated with some things that we all tend to go through, and specifically Brother Will this week. So shout out to Brother Will, who inspired this lesson for me. Our brother, and maybe even some of you are crying out loud, right, as we're supposed to do during trials and hard times. Each and every time I read and go to certain scriptures, when Israel's getting saved, it's only because we cry aloud, right? Obviously, we're in those positions because of being disobedient, but he decides to save us when we cry out loud. So what does that mean? That means we're not to be content here, especially in the world and the nation that doesn't belong to us. We're not reigning. We're supposed to be complaining. But not only complaining, but most importantly, understanding what's required of us from the Lord, right? Which is to ultimately, as we all know, keep his commandments, statutes, and laws, right? Or to do things in decency and in order, 24/7. So I started with that. Let's go ahead and go to the first passage. We can just create a subtitle if you like. Jacob wrestles with the angels. I don't know how you all write your notes, but this could help if you all go back and review it during the week. Jacob wrestles with the angel. So we'll begin in Genesis 32, and we'll read verses 24 through 28. Verse 24. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh. And the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint, as he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, What is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel, for as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed. Thank you, Brother Rob. So first, I really do enjoy having lessons and us being interactive, just as every other gentleman have come up and expected from you all. So that's how the lesson will go smooth. So my first question in reading this scripture, it doesn't matter who really answers, and I'll provide my answer after. But why do you all think Yaakov had to wrestle with the angel before meeting his big brother Esau? What is the reason for that as we read and meditate through these scriptures? Why do you all think that?
Well, the first thing I'll say this. The first thing, you would have to know that the next chapter he's going to meet Esau in the first place, right? So keeping that in context, one would have to be aware of that. But if there is any significance to him wrestling with an angel, and then the next chapter over wrestling with Esau, with this being the introduction of this lesson, is probably because him wrestling with an angel represented him having power with God. And throughout his whole life, he wrestled with Esau. So his name being Israel, having power with God, and then also having power with man, is probably representative of that. But that's my answer.
Anyone else? There's really no wrong answers. It's just commentary. Sister Moon.
When I read this, I was thinking along the lines that he was wrestling with his guilt and his shame of what had taken place before the departure of him, or the separation of him and his brother. And knowing that he was about to meet him again, he was still wrestling with that guilt. So he had to give it over to God so that he would be able to receive what it was that God was about to give.
Anyone else?
Anytime you wrestle with something, it's that God is trying to get your attention. It's man versus what God is trying to tell us. So in my aspiration for this, is he wrestling between what God had for him to do for his next journey.
Absolutely. So for me, I wrote down in my notes, the struggle represents Jacob's spiritual transformation and preparation to face his past, right? So we understand that, as we read before, his name changes to Israel. We also have to understand the meaning of Jacob, and then also the meaning of Israel to really get the context, which we'll go over. It's no problem at all. I just want to pick y'all's brains as to what you all might have thought, why, or the significance behind Jacob wrestling with the angel, and why the Most High even put this in his path to begin with, right? So there's a reason for everything. There's a reason why the Most High puts bumps in the roads for us. Life isn't supposed to be easy. Once we take this torch and understand what's expected from us, we should already know we have to be prepared for it, because as mentioned in Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. So our journey will be much harder, right? And we have to prove ourselves to the Most High. We must do that. So again, I'll answer by saying the struggle represents Yaakov's spiritual transformation and preparation to face his past. So my second question for you all is, what does Jacob's name change from Jacob to Israel symbolize? Now, like Zeph mentioned, I'll give context for that. I have here in my notes, Jacob means supplanter, supersede, or replacing. And then Israel means one who struggles with the Lord. So again, my question is, what does his name change from Jacob to Israel symbolize? If we can get some commentary on that, that would be great. Anybody? So if you can remember, weeks ago, Zeph and I had brought out, and this is why it's important to study throughout the weeks, right? Because it shouldn't be silent. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but we drove all the way over here to Sabbath, so we should at least be interacting. So Brother Zeph and I had mentioned that Jacob essentially deceived Esau, right? He deceived his brother, including his mother, right? There's really no nice way to put it, no cherry picking. But he was a deceiver, right? Or he was looked at as a deceiver. So signifying his growth from a deceiver to a leader of a nation is very symbolic and very important. Would you all agree? So in saying that, it doesn't really matter how you start, right? It's about, where the Most High is taking you. And you must fulfill your role accordingly. So in order to do that, you need to know where you are, accept where you are, understand your capabilities and circumstances, and use the tools the Most High has provided you. Each and every one has their own lot. Not everybody has the same things, the same blessings, the same hardships. We each have our own lots, right? But we have one complete purpose, which is to, hopefully, Lord willing, be granted to the new kingdom, right? The new Jerusalem, when the time is ready. So that is how I answered it. If anybody wanted to piggyback or even give another answer, that would be great. Or we can just move on to the next question. But I would appreciate if you all would interact. No answers wrong. I just like talking, that's all. So does anybody else want to say anything in regards to that? Does anyone disagree with me or anything like that?
I like it.
You like it?
The transformation from who you are to what you're going to be, and the fact that the Father uses all that in between to bring you to where you're supposed to be at.
Cool. So do we know what, do we understand what Yaakov means, his name means? So, supplanter, supersede, and replace. That's what I found in my research, looking up his name. And it's all symbolic, right? Because as I mentioned, it's where you start and where you're going, right? And it's very important. It's very important to note that there's not just names and words in this Bible. It all means everything. It all means something. Because as we all know, even Hebrew, the language in itself, is very powerful. And I'm not talking about Hebrew today, obviously. I'm talking about ancient Hebrew. These words are coming out of our brothers' mouths, our sisters' mouths, meant something and did something. Shalom, Brother Will. Thank y'all for joining us. This lesson is for you, Brother Will, by the way.
Oh, that's it. Appreciate it. Yeah.
So I'll do you a good deed and kind of not start over, but kind of just give you a synopsis of what we've gone over so far. The title of this lesson is Transformation, Conflict, and Divine Blessings. And I'll take my time. We got until 6 today, so it don't matter to me. I just want everybody to understand. So just let me know when you're ready, Will. Title of the lesson is Transformation, Conflict, and Divine Blessings. Genesis 32 right now. Brother Rob just read Genesis chapter 32, verses 24 through 28. So Jacob's name means to supersede, supplant, supersede, and replace, right? Okay. And Israel, it says to have meaning one who struggles with God. Okay. So there, that in itself, not only his spirituality was transformed, even his name, right? So it all means something. It all means something. It's very powerful. Does anybody have anything they wanted to add to that before I move on to the third question?
I would like to add that Israel, I don't know what source you're looking at, but the name Israel is not just to struggle with God, but it also means to rule or to have, power with God, or God prevails. So God prevailing, and you ruling with God, also you're prevailing. So I just would like to add that point in there too.
Thank you. Thank you for that thumbs up. Which also kind of, when I was mentioning his transformation from being a deceiver to a leader, right? Is that basically what you were saying?
Say it again.
When I had mentioned him being a leader of the entire nation, is that what definition you just read?
That's verse 28.
Yeah, that's 28.
Yeah.
So Jacob means supplanter. He was named that because why? When his brother come out first, and it said Jacob's hand grabbed a hold of his heel, which is what supplanter means. It's like he was trying to hold him back.
Replace him and come first, right?
Right. And then Israel, like you mentioned, it means to struggle with God, as you seeing him struggling with the angel, which the angel is a representative of God. But he prevails because God is with him, right? Because God is always going to prevail. So he prevails because God prevails. So what I have here is to rule with God, or God prevails, in essence, to go along with the wrestling aspect.
Gotcha. Thank you for that, Brother Drew. My third question, family, is how do we wrestle with challenges today in our spiritual journey? How do we do that? So I'll start again. Like Yaakov, we all face struggles, whether that be internal, right? Faith, fear, doubt, or external relationships, hardships, like we spoke about this week, right? And we must, like Zephaniah just mentioned, we must persevere to grow, and in order to do that, we must be coincided in cahoots with the Most High. Point blank period, right? To even understand, to even comprehend, right? So again, my answer is like Yaakov, like Jacob, we all face struggles, whether that be internal, which would be faith, fear, and doubt, or external, which would be relationships, hardships, and we must persevere in order to grow. So I'll ask my question again, how do we wrestle with challenges today in our spiritual journey? I would love for you all to share even some challenges you all may face.
Okay, so you are asking about like personal things?
Yeah, personal, yeah.
So we're talking about, are you talking about like anything like law related?
I mean, yeah, that's what it is, yeah.
Alright, so I'm sorry, I'm just trying to, make sense of the question. So you're asking like what thing in the law that we struggle with in particular?
Sure, if you want to get specific, yeah, that's fine. But I mean, you don't have to get extremely personal, Gabe. That's why I wasn't trying to talk about towards specific bad.
No, I was just trying to see like Is that what you're asking? That's,
I'm just simply asking, how do we wrestle with challenges today in our spiritual journey? That's all. Trying to keep it simple.
I'll give one. If Brother Rob could read James chapter 1, and we could read verse 1.
James chapter 1.
Yeah.
Verse what?
If you could read verse 1 through 8.
You did say one.
Yeah. It's the book of James, chapter 1, verse 1 through 8.
James chapter 1, verse 1 through 8. James chapter 1, verse 1. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings. My brother, count it all joy when you fall in diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have a perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like the wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. But let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways.
So the reason I wanted to go here is because you asked the question, how do we wrestle with things in our life, etc. There's many components to that, but at least for me personally, when I read verses like this, first of all, he's talking to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. We believe that we're part of the 12 tribes scattered here to America, right? And he says, count it joy when you go through diverse temptations, meaning hardships, things that kind of make you doubt yourself, things that kind of make you, it seem like you want to put yourself down, right? He says to count all these things joy because this is the trying of your faith. Now we know in Hebrews chapter 2, he tells us that God chastises those that he loves, okay? So to a degree, when he says count it joy, when I read verses like this and coincide with other verses like Hebrews chapter 2, I'm almost expecting to go through something. It's like if I'm not going through something, maybe there's something that's not going right. Because when you look at all of the righteous men in the Bible, something happened to them. I'm not saying that we should just be expecting something to happen to them, but when you read and you understand stuff like this, living in a world that's filled with wickedness, you're going to go through situations. It's inevitable that you're going to go through situations that are going to try you, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, mainly spiritually, but everything else will follow after that. So when I look at stuff like that, I do count it joy because this is a process of working on my patience, like you mentioned earlier in your lesson. The transformation of who I was before dealing with a similar situation versus how I would conduct myself with that situation now is totally different. But that is as a byproduct of going through whatever it is that, you know, we go through, and I count it joy. It says, it goes further on to say that the patience that your faith is working, it says makes a perfect work. The work is yourself, right? You're the person, you're the work, you're the embodiment. It says that you may be perfect and entire, meaning complete. So whoever you're supposed to be, right? Because Jacob's lot was already established before he was even born. Okay? So whoever he was supposed to be, there are things that God is going to put in front of him to make him end up being that person. In like manner, you mentioned about our lot, whoever we're supposed to be, etc., whatever the will of God is going to happen. And there are things that he puts in front of us to make it happen. All right? And all of this, again, in verse 6, it says, let him ask in faith, not wavering. many times when we go through these situations, we waver, we doubt, we think, well, you know, I'm not this, or I'm not that, or, you know, I must have did something, or blah, 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 right? We waver, and it's like we can be tossed to and fro whenever we're not grounded, like the scripture told us to be in a previous verse. All right, it says, for he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea that's driven with the wind and is tossed. So we want to be grounded. We have to be grounded in knowing that when we go through these temptations, that we're not supposed to react to it negatively. We're supposed to react to it in a certain way that let us know that this is the development that we need to in order to be the person we're supposed to become. So that's how I look at it. But
So in full, in order to grow, we must fall and get up, right? Mama Thomas?
Just wanted to piggyback off that. When you ask us to struggle that we supposed to have in this world, we supposed to set out, we supposed to be different. Like you ever heard the saying of, we supposed to be the salt of the earth, the light. So I will struggle every day because people watching us, if we different or we say who we are, we supposed to struggle every day to be different. And people will look at us and we're not of the world. We in the world, but we're not of the world. So that's each day we're supposed to enjoy that struggle to show that we're different. We're God people, the Most High, and that means something.
We are to enjoy the struggle. We are to enjoy the struggle. Sister?
I was just, thinking about Ephesians 6:12, when it says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, principalities, against powers, against rulers of darkness of this world, and against spiritual wickedness in high places. So a lot of times when we wrestle in the flesh, it's some sort of attack, be it spiritual wickedness or somebody's trying to really just come against what your faith belief is, and all of those wrestles is, it's almost like you say, attack. So, and you know, it reminds us to just put on the full armor.
That's right. It's almost like Zeph said, it's inevitable, right? Even the wicked go through things, right? But we understand that the righteous, like I mentioned this week, yesterday, our task, our sacrifice is much more heavy. So it gets heavy. It gets real heavy. And sometimes we want to quit, right? But we have to remember to enjoy these times of chastisement, because if we don't, then there's no need to grow. We'll look back at 25, well, you know, no offense to anybody else, well, I'll say 28, I'm 28. I'm 48 in 20 years. If I'm doing the same things that I'm doing now at 48, then there's a problem. It's an issue. That's a huge problem, a huge issue. And we have to be honest with ourselves, right? In order to even grow and do what's expected of us from the Father, we have to be honest with ourselves and accept that. Moreover, now I kind of want to do an interactive exercise, because I don't like how quiet it was in here at first. We kind of just got the blood flowing a little bit, so I'll continue with that. I kind of want to reflect on some challenges that require faith and perseverance, but instead of personal, I kind of want to maybe challenge us to, let's do maybe 3 each. I'll do one, and then 2 more men, and then maybe 3 women. Going through the Bible, whether that be Torah, Tanakh, it doesn't matter, Old or New Testament, it doesn't matter. But 3 different, each, 3 different instances from patriarchs and matriarchs that we read about throughout the week, every day, right? Some struggles that they faced. So an example that I have is in Genesis 39. Let's go to Genesis 39, Brother Rob. Can you please get me 20 through 23. And no one's allowed to use the same thing. We gotta start, we gotta think. Let's have some fun here. Let's have some fun. Genesis 39, verses 20 through 23. Mine is when Joseph was in prison, and what helped him get out of that position, right? What motivated him, what pushed him to get out of that? Obviously, we all know it's the Most High's will, but let's dig a little further. So, Brother Robert, if you don't mind. Yes, sir.
Read Genesis chapter 39, verse 20 through 23.
Well, let's start. Zeph, if you can help me, what would be a good place to start with, like, proper context? I just want to get to the point.
19.
19, okay.
Genesis chapter 39, verse 19 through 22.
Yeah, sorry about that.
And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spoke unto him, saying, After this manner did the servant to me, that his wrath was kindled.
So we understand why Joseph was in Egypt in the first place, correct? We all understand that?
I think you should explain that.
Okay, so Joseph, as we all know, was basically taken to Egypt because of his brothers. They did not appreciate the fact that their father favored Joseph because of the cloth. I think I know his dad rewarded Joseph with a specific type of attire, right, to kind of distinguish and differentiate him as far as pinpointing him as his favorite son, right? And his brothers did not take kindly to that. So instead of keeping him where they initially put him, they decided to sell him to Egypt, which is why Joseph is where he is now, in the position he is in now, right? Do we understand that? Cool. Go ahead, Brother Rob.
Verse 20. Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison.
So now he's in prison.
But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him mercy, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison.
Let's be clear, this is because of who his dad was, right? Mostly because of who Yaakov was.
And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph hand all the prison. Hold on. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison. And whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him. And that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper.
Beautiful. So verses 22 and 23 are the point, right? Joseph had a task appointed to him by the leader of Egypt, right? A very important task, which was to be the keeper of the prison, right? Committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison. Keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him. And that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. So, faith in the Lord led him to become a ruler in Egypt. Thus, spiritual transformation from him being abandoned by his brothers, but the Lord showing him favoritism and mercy, ultimately leading him for a fuller purpose that we read about all the time of Joseph, right? Him being a huge patriarch in Israel's history and culture. So, like I mentioned, I challenged the two men to come up with 2 more, and then the women to come up with 3 more. And then we can continue. But I would like to interact that way. Thank you.
I think Brother Ricky said he got one.
Go ahead, Brother Ricky. You got it. You got it, Brother Ricky.
Ain't ready yet.
Come on. Gabe?
I'm still trying to think of one myself.
Zell?
Alright.
You gotta take us to it. Let's read it.
You said, man, you're struggling here, right?
Yeah.
Alright.
Go ahead, Brother Ricky.
What we just, James, cause I was about to talk about that in a bit. James, what you just took us to?
Right. That was
26.
I don't know, are you looking for a specific individual or it's just in general?
Well, at first I was talking about specific people.
Yeah, so I think he talking about like a specific person. Yeah, like James was speaking more in general.
Well, I was just about to say the man seems to be religious out of his tongue.
What'd you say, Brother?
If a man seems to be religious, he has to bridle his tongue. And if he doesn't, his religion is vain. That's what this, and that James 26.
So
He
give me,
just said verse 26.
can you give us an exact example of that?
Like me, whether it be religious or worldly, everyday struggle, like if you have a conversation with someone, whether it be religious or worldly, you have to, no matter the foolishness that come out of their mouth, or they say, you cannot react in a vulgar or ungodly way. You have to bottle yourself down, because if they get you to get out of character, it's really like your religion is false. That, you know, like you yourself are not a good example of the way you're supposed to walk out. Like, last weekend I had to go visit my aunt before she passed, and me and my cousin was riding. On the way down there, 8 hours, everything was cool. Nothing bad came up. But on the ride coming back, I really wanted to pull the truck over on the side of the road. So, cause he was really coming at me about, oh, you supposed to be religious, you supposed to be this and that. So I kind of was losing it, but I calmed myself down and made it home. He just was coming at me with his foolish talk, and I don't know, I was hitting him with Bible scripts, and he would come up the top of his head and just was straight foolishness. I mean, it was like talking to somebody that don't, I don't know, I didn't explain it. But I calmed down, he did not know I got upset, so I did that. In the side, I really burned up. But I calmed myself down and calmed the conversation down, and they went back in.
That's a good point. It kind of made me think about what happened last week when I was in therapy. I started therapy maybe 3 weeks, about a month ago. And the lady that is helping me, her name is Miss Charmaine. And last year, her daughter got murdered by her boyfriend, who was 7 years older than her. It was right on the airline, I think, at these apartments. And you couldn't even tell that she had this huge weight on her like that because of how she, it almost made me think, damn, you sure you don't need therapy type of thing, But what was amazing to me was that she asked me a question because she kind of complimented me on how I was speaking about the Most High and things like that, how I wanted to please Him more than anything. And she asked me, was she wrong for feeling angry and wanting, because apparently in court, the gentleman's grandmother and mom were taunting her, saying that, oh, here this beautiful thing coming in, walking in here looking all good, stuff like that, just inappropriate. And she asked me, she said, that happened about 2 weeks ago, and I felt terrible because the first thought in my head was, I hope something really happens to your son, and I hope he gets a death penalty. And she asked me, was she wrong for being angry? And I told her that was a really, it's a really conflicting question because of what we spoke about with Brother Kermit almost, 2-3 weeks ago, right? Even our enemies, right? And how Zephaniah mentioned it's so hard to kind of have to let go of some things and understand that the vengeance belongs to the Most High, right? And I don't know how that feels because I haven't lost somebody in that way. But I kind of just told her, no, I don't think it's wrong to be angry. You're human. I think it would be kind of weird for you not to be angry. It's only been a year, right? And even with that, I don't think you can ever recover from something like that. And again, I've never experienced it, but when you had shared your story about that and wanting to pull over and stuff before you reacted, because we all know we much rather respond than react, right? So that story you shared, brother, kind of just made me think about the interaction I had with Ms. Charmaine. So we got one more on the gentleman's side, and then I'll let the women go. Brother Gabe,
So biblically, if he would have did that biblically, back in, if he would have killed the woman biblically.
So we're gonna talk about justice soon. That's why I'm building everything up. I promise this will all make sense. This is why this will be a perfect lesson if it's in the Most High's will. So, Brother Gabe, you ready?
Nah, man, I still haven't cleaned anything up.
Oh, good. Zep? What about you, Brother Dunbar? You got some?
I can maybe find something.
Let's do it. Go ahead.
His favorite person in the Bible is Joseph.
Joseph?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
when
man,
he
you
hit
mine.
Joseph, Yeah.
Yeah, like he got my attention.
Alright, that's fair.
Joseph forgave his brothers to the son of slavery. Oh, what's that?
Genesis 47.
Go there. Let's go to Dunbar, Genesis 47. Where we at, Joe?
No, it's chapter
48.
46.
Hmm?
46.
Where we started?
I'm looking for a spot right now.
No, I was asking that, Brother Dunbar.
It really depends.
Well, he had mentioned specifically Joseph,
Forgiving
his
them.
brother.
I just came over one.
I'll get you after.
Genesis 47.
28 or
What
30?
verse?
We're on.
Genesis 46. Trying to help Brother Dunbar out. He had a good point in saying that Joseph forgave his brothers for what they did to him. And I think that's overcoming. You know, forgiveness is important. It's essential for growth.
It's so that man slavery, man.
Hmm?
I said it sold his brother into
Yeah.
slavery.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's dirty.
More than dirty. Betrayal.
Oh, I'm sorry. Genesis 50, and you start at 17.
Genesis 50, everyone. Sorry, 7?
17.
17. Genesis 50. 17. To the end.
Nah, just to 26.
26. And Brother Dunbar, you can just remind everybody why you're going to this? And then Brother Robert Reed.
I want to talk about this one because it talks about forgiveness, which in my personal life, I found that hard to do sometimes.
We're in the same boat with you, man.
Brother Robert, you can do us the honors.
In Genesis chapter 50, verse 17. So shall you say unto Joseph, forgive, I pray thee now, the trespass of thy brethren, and their sin, for they did unto thee evil. And now we pray thee, forgive the trespass of thy servants, of the God of thy father. And Joseph wept when they spoke unto him. And his brethren also went and fell down before his face. And they said, behold, we be thy servants. And Joseph said unto them, fear not, for I am in the place of God. But as for you, you thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people alive. Now therefore fear ye not, I will nourish you and your little ones. And he comforted them, and spoke kindly unto them. And Joseph dwelt in Egypt, he and his father's house. And Joseph lived 110 years.
Yeah, it's not right there.
Brother Dunbar, that was great. As reading this, it's almost like even when you're in those hard situations, you try your best to keep faith, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, you really don't know what the Most High got planned. So it's very important to keep your loins girded and continue to walk on the narrow, right? And see the bigger picture, which was for him to save much people alive and then greet his brothers again because of the famine that was going on, in which was why they had to travel to Egypt. So the Most High already had a plan that it was inevitable for them to meet their brother again. But the next time you meet your brother, you will see how great he is, and you try to destroy him, right? It's a beautiful thing. You want to add anything else? Cool. Brother Gabe?
When Christ was betrayed by Judas Iscariot,
Matthew?
I think this is Matthew 26, I think. You know, he had disciples, you know, he had disciples that was basically, following him around. He was teaching these brothers. He even broke bread with them, only for one of them to betray him.
His actual brother.
And, he already knew who it was. I think this is Matthew 26.
Matthew 26.
I'm not sure where I really want to start, but
It's up to you.
he just start from the beginning. I think this is what I want. I'm not sure.
The whole time, to expound on that part, I had the lesson a while back on it. The whole time, Judas was sticking his hand and getting money out of their bag. He was shortchanging the people. He was the one controlling the money that they was collecting. And he was stealing the whole time out of the bag. So I think he was setting them up to get that happened to him the whole time.
I guess you can kind of correlate to, real life, people you trust the most, who think they'll have your back end of the train,
Yeah, that happened.
so.
Wherever you want to start, good.
I say I think you can start from the beginning of Matthew 26 or verse 1. It might be the whole chapter, I'm not really sure. It's been a while since I even, read anything out of Matthew.
Well, to be fair, for time's sake, respectfully.
Unless you want to start all the way at verse 17.
17.
Matthew 26.
Thanks. 17.
Yeah.
Matthew chapter 26, verse 17. Now the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying unto him, Where wilt thou that we prepare for thee to eat the Passover? And he said, Go into the city to such a man, and say unto him, The master said, My time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at thy house with my disciples. And the disciples did as Jesus had appointed them, and they made ready the Passover. Now when the evening was come, he sat down with the 12. And as they did eat, he said, Verily I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. And they were exceeding sorrowful, and began every one of them to say unto him, Lord, is it I? And he answered and said, He that dippeth his hand with me in his dish, the same shall betray me. The Son of Man goeth as it is written of him. But woe unto the man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It had been good for that man if he had not been born. Then Judas, which betrayed him, answered and said, Master, is it I? He said unto him, Thou hast said. We'll keep on.
Good.
We're going to start right
I think you keep going.
there. Verse 26. And as they were eating, Jesus took bread and blessed it and brake it and gave it to his disciples and said, Take, eat, this is my body. And he took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, Drink ye all of it, for this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remissions of sins. But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. And when they had sung a hymn, they went out into the mount of Olives. Then Jesus said unto them, all you shall be offended because of me this night, for it is written, I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered abroad. But after I am risen again, I will go before you into Galilee. Peter answered and said unto him, though all men shall be offended because of thee, yet will I never be offended. Jesus said unto him, verily I say unto thee, that this night before the cock crow, thou shalt deny me thrice. Peter said unto him, though I should die with thee, yet will I not deny thee. Likewise also said all the disciples.
Maybe we should, go to 47, Gabe?
Yeah, I was actually
The point that you were trying to make?
Yeah, I was actually trying to read through it for y'all, so I could tell y'all
That's
this.
good, bro. It's okay, let's just, just for time's sake, I wanna stick with the point, that's all. So we can go, Brother Rob, if you don't mind, for Gabe, we can go to, what is it, 47 through, really, 47 through 50, I think is a good landing point, Gabe.
You can just go ahead and read.
Keep reading what, through the,
No, start at 47 and then 50.
verse 47. And while he yet spoke, lo, Judas, one of the 12, came, and with him a great multitude with swords and staves, from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now he that betrayed him gave them a sign, saying, whosoever I shall kiss, that same is he, hold him fast. And forthwith he came to Jesus and said, Hail, Master, and kissed him. And Jesus said unto him, Friend, wherefore art thou come? Then came they and laid hands on Jesus and took him.
That's a good one, Gabe. You want to expound upon that?
I mean, like I said before y'all started reading, this is somebody that was, teaching. That was, learning under Christ. They spent a lot of time, traveling together, doing things for God. He trusted these brothers. He already knew somebody was going to betray him, but it's just the point is that, you have people that you're close to that you would assume have your back, and y'all, stick through thick and thin, only for this person to end up betraying you in some way, shape, or form. It don't have to be as crazy as, this example, but, somebody just basically, discern your trust, So that's why I just want to bring it out.
Yeah, that was a good example, I think. Verse 25 in Matthew 26 is crazy to read again because everybody was asking, Lord, is it I in 22? And when Judas asked, Yeshua, Christ said, you have said, thou hast said. And then later said, when he was getting caught up, about to get arrested and taken back, right? He had said that the person I kissed is the one who betrayed me. So it makes you kind of wonder, if they sit at the table, everybody's asking him, but the only person he responded to was Judas. Did all the other 11 know that Judas was the one? So to be fair, as far as time is 4:13, I would like the women to at least give one example, and then we can move on. Just one. Y'all can help me out with just one. You're outside.
She just said
Joe.
She just said Joe. You didn't hear?
No, but Ava had her hand up first. So I want to be fair. So if y'all want to do 3, that's fine. I'm good with you. Let's do it. But Ava, you can start.
I thought a good one for patience is Tamar and Judah.
Genesis 38.
Genesis 38. Let's go ahead.
It actually covers several things, but we can read it and then we'll discuss it out.
Where would you like to start?
I don't know. We get to the point.
Jeff, what's a good place? I can't remember verse 6.
Yeah,
To what?
to the end.
The third?
To the end.
Genesis 39,
38.
38, sorry. Genesis 38, we'll read verse 6 through 30. Thank you.
Genesis chapter 38, starting at verse 6. And Judah took a wife from Er, his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. And Er, Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. And Judah said unto Onan, Go in unto thy brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his. And it came to pass, when he went in unto his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord, wherefore he slew him also. Then said Judah to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow at thy father's house, till she lie, my son be grown. For he said, lest peradventure he die also, as his brother did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. And in the process of time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died, and was comforted, and went up unto the sheep shearers to Timnah. He and his friend Hiram, the Adullamite. And it was told Tamar, saying, Behold, thy father-in-law goeth up to Timnah. I might mess up some word y'all better.
Nah, you pronouncing it right, brother. Timnah?
Timnah to shear his sheep. And she put her widow's garments off from her, and covered her with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place, which is by the way to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him to wife. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be hardened, because she had covered her face. And he turned unto her by the way, and said, Go to, I pray thee, let me come in unto thee. For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, What wilt thou give me, that thou mayest come in unto me? And he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. And she said, Wilt thou give me a pledge till thou send it? And he said, What pledge shall I give thee? And she said, Thy signet, and thy bracelets, and thy staff that is in thy hand. And he gave it her, and came in unto her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away and laid by her veil from her, and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend, the Adullamite, to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. Then he asked the men of their place, saying, Where is the harlot? Where's the harlot that was openly by the wayside? And they said, There was no harlot in this place. And he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. And also the men of the place said that there was no harlot in this place. And Judah said, Let her take it to her. And Judah said, Let her take it to her, lest we be ashamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and thou hast not found her. It came to pass about 3 months after that it was told Judah, saying, Tomorrow thy daughter-in-law had played the harlot. And also, behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, bring her forth, and let her be burnt. When she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, by the man who these are, am I with child? And she said, discern, I pray thee, whose are these? The signet, the bracelets, and the staff. And Judah acknowledged them and said, she had been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not to Shelah my son, and knew her again no more. And he knew her again no more. And it came to pass in the time of her travail, that behold, twins were in her womb. And it came to pass when she travailed, that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound him upon his hand, and scarlet thread, saying, this came out first. And it came to pass, as he drew back his hand, that behold, his brother came out. And she said, how hast thou broken forth? This breach be upon thee. Therefore his name was called Perez. And afterward came out his brother, that had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zara. Hope I did it right, y'all.
Good. Hey. Timnat.
Sister Hay, if you could, just expound on that, your thoughts on that?
Well, initially I was gonna mention patience, but I think this is a good, account to reflect on self-examination and, judgment. So judge not lest you be judged, because Judah judged his sister before self-examining himself and the things that he did. So if we in a situation where, for example, if we get irritated with people that's not in a known or awakened, and you forget that you was in a similar situation or a situation where you're not in a position to judge somebody to the point of condemning, I think this is a good account to reflect on.
Yeah. Very good. I like that a lot. Two more. Beautiful sister. Y'all got it.
Mine will be the house side in the garden, right before he was arrested and crucified, which would be Matthew 26 and verse 32. Matthew 26.
I just read, we just went over that.
Matthew 26 and 36.
Well,
Yeah, y'all skipped over. You jumped to 47.
so we about to read a verse in the same chapter already?
Yes.
That's fair.
It's probably different scenarios. Bring up.
That's fair.
Shit, we could've got that in the morning, man.
Matthew 26, what verse?
Hey, who wanted to skip?
I did.
36.
Exactly. I could've got a 2 for 1 special in this thing.
And we'll read Matthew chapter 26, verse 36,
Yeah, this from 36 to 39.
36 to 39. And verse 36. Then cometh Jesus with them unto a place called Gethsemane, and said unto the disciples, that's verse 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sit you here while I go and pray yonder. And he took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, and began to be sorrowful and very heavy. Then said he unto them, my soul is exceeding sorrowful, even unto death. Tarry ye here and watch with me. And he went a little further and fell on his face and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt.
Sister Yehuda?
Yes, and that right there was signified the struggle any challenge that, of things that we have to face, and, Mashiach facing something extremely challenging is death and torture, and yet and still in that moment, he relied on his father for strength, and he is like, not his will, but his father's will be done in this situation. And that helped him. So, yeah.
That's good. It's almost like, to kind of piggyback on what Zeph had mentioned maybe 20 minutes ago. Especially in Yeshua's case, he already knew, right? So like Zeph had mentioned, if we're gonna take up this torch and walk, then we should already be prepared for the snares, right? So when they do come, and in which they are set up by the Most High, but we also understand, just like Job, whether these things come from the Most High or he allows the Most High allows Satan to do these things, we still must prove ourselves, right? We still must prove ourselves. Just as Yeshua was tempted on that mount and declined, just when Yeshua was on the stalk, on the wooden tree, being about to be hung, crucified, whatever, right? Killed, murdered, he called on to the Father, right? And then even in that moment, asked the Most High to forgive those people who did not know better. Still, in that moment. So what does that mean? What excuse do we, who are men and women that aren't even in that stature, but want to emulate these people, what excuse do we have when things get hard and we want to quit so bad, but we have to remember to call on the one who created us, right? I think that's a great example.
And adding on to that too, he will not put more on you than you can handle. And he knows.
He will not tempt you with something you can't handle. Absolutely. One more example.
2 Corinthians 12, about 7.
2 Corinthians 12, starting 7. Is that what you said, sister?
Yeah. Or maybe 6 verse. He's talking about Paul and how Paul, well, I guess everybody knows his story when he was preaching against the gospel. When he started preaching the gospel, you know, I'm quite sure a lot of people wouldn't receive him at first. But Paul always talked about this thorn in his side, and that's how I always feel. It's like, you know, if I didn't have this thorn in my side all the time, sometime I would probably go astray. So it's like some of these things, some of our infirmities, some of these things we go through is for the Most High to keep us humble. So, Paul, you know.
Please forgive me, sister. Could you tell me your name again? I'm sorry.
Leah.
Sister Leah. Thank you.
We in 2 Corinthians what?
12, chapter 12.
I'm sorry about verse 6.
Yes.
Starting 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 6. For though I would desire to glory, I shall not be a fool, for I will say the truth. But now I forbear, lest any man should think of me above that which he seeth me to be, or that he heareth of me. And lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I shall be exalted above measure. For this thing I besought the Lord Christ, that it might depart from me. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me.
Well, I mean, that's basically what I'm saying. It's like Paul realized that that thorn in his flesh was to keep him humble, you know, but at the same time, just picture you having a thorn in your side constantly. And then you went to the Lord and you besought him to remove the thorn. And he said, my grace is sufficient. So look, this thorn is here to keep you where I want you. You know, so it's like, okay, you got to accept the fact that, okay, you got to bear these stones, but at the same time, keep pressing, keep doing what the will of the Father says.
Absolutely, and I think verse 9 is a beautiful point. It reads, and he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in my weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. I think that's a beautiful point. That's what, also, again, Zephaniah had mentioned about 25 minutes ago, when he was going through his dissertation with his response. So, thank you all for interacting with me. We can move on. It's another subtopic. Jacob and Esau. Lessons on conflict resolution. We can just call it conflict resolution now. So to kind of summarize, we talked about spiritual growth, transformation. We've talked about issues we dealt with, whether they be personal or even sisters and brothers we read about. And now we're going to talk about conflict resolution. How do we get to that point? How do we ensure that we fulfill what the Most High is going to require from us, whether that be seeking justice or waiting for Him to commit vengeance on those who have done us wrong? So, Brother Rob, can you give me Genesis 33? Verse 4. And before Brother Rob reads that, did anybody in the comments have any questions or something?
I'm gonna be right back.
So now, context before Brother Rob read, this is when Jacob was going to meet Esau. Obviously, as Jacob spoke about, he was expecting Esau to react a certain way, right? Because, again, like we mentioned earlier, he ultimately deceived Esau, right? Which made Esau want to leave his father's house away from his mom and his brother because he felt some type of way, right? So now Jacob is going to meet Esau, and Jacob is expecting a reaction, which is why Jacob also has a gift, which we will read about, that he wants to give Esau. But first, we'll start at Genesis 33 and we'll read verse 4.
Genesis chapter 33, verse 4. And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept.
So another question I have for you all. As I mentioned, Jacob feared Esau's, his older brother's anger, right? Yet, well, you know what? No, that's okay. Yet, Esau embraced him. Now, what does this teach us about resolving past conflicts? Can anyone share their thoughts on that? But again, I'll start first. For me, I wrote time. Especially, like I shared with you, I started therapy and stuff last month. So I really wanted to make some proper changes as far as my temperament and other things that I've been dealing with personally. I felt like if I continue to do those things, then I might end up like the same gentleman that, respectfully, I was taken care of, right? So even in that was a lesson for me to get my stuff together. Right? It's very scary, very, very scary to really realize that. So I put time, personal growth, and divine intervention can transform relationships. That is my answer. I would like you all to share y'all's thoughts and y'all's answers on that. I'll ask the question again. So, in knowing that Yaakov feared his older brother's Esau's anger, yet, as we saw, and Brother Rob read in verse 4, Esau embraced him, what does this teach us about resolving past conflicts? What does this teach us? Put it aside. Okay?
One way to look at it is you just gonna have to face it. Just putting it to the side sometimes ain't gonna fix it all the time. You're gonna have to just, like you did someone wrong, just confess to them, whether they realize it or not, what you have done. Even though like him, he thought his brother was gonna kill him. They finally met up and his brother embraced him. But the whole time he probably thought his brother was gonna hurt him or something.
Why does Yaakov, first, Brother Robert, can you give me, I know I gotta get context on what you're talking. let's do Genesis, 33, and just give me 10 and 11, please. And then I'll ask my question.
Genesis 33, verse 10. And Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present in my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God, and thou was pleased with me. Take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought up to me, because God had dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough, and urged him, and he took it.
Right. So obviously before verses 10 and 11, Jacob asked Esau to accept this gift, and Esau declined, right? So my question for everyone is, why did Jacob insist on giving Esau gifts? Even after Esau declined it, even after his big brother declined gifts, why did Jacob insist on wanting to give Esau gifts? Why?
Because
Why was that important for him?
to accept gifts. I guess to take that anger away from the birthright situation.
Okay. Anyone else?
Guilt.
Yep. All time?
I like to repent because when he seen the face of God, he bring, peace that he was trying to make up for.
Dave?
The scripture that says that a gift softens the heart.
Yeah. Peace treaty. That is, what is it? Proverbs something.
Proverbs 21 and 14.
Proverbs 21 and 14. Thank you. Okay. Maybe that's why Esau declined it, right? Because we all know Esau also knew Torah, right? We are aware of that. Because his descendants are the one that screwed it up. Esau wasn't dumb. He was very smart as far as Torah. He knew how to keep Torah. He was very aware of what was expected of him as far as the Most High. It's just the idea of, well, when I read, the difference between those brothers was Jacob's idea was, hey, there's a God in all of us. There's a God within all of us. We are not to wait on the Messiah to do better, to get what we want out of things, out of life. We are to do what we're supposed to do, come together, and then that's when Yeshua will show up. That's when the Most High will open those skies for Yeshua to reign again. Esau, from what I read, his idea was, nah, it ain't nothing gonna happen until New Jerusalem come here, so we might as well just go with life through how it's supposed to be and just deal with it, right? So those are the two biggest deals. I know I'm not trying to go ahead, but that's just an idea I kind of wanted to try to embed in our brains, because Esau did know Torah, and a lot of us try, we talk a lot about the Edomites and stuff, but Esau was a very smart man. So I have here, my answer says, Jacob insists because he wants to demonstrate repentance, like Mama Thomas has said, and make peace, like she also said, in a tangible way. So my third question, and then we'll move on to my other section, is how does Torah teach us to approach enemies or those we have wronged? How does Torah teach us that? I'll ask it again. How does Torah teach us to approach our enemies or those we have wronged? So, if we can get, I kind of want to read it anyway. Let's do Proverbs 16, verse 7. Proverbs 16, verse 7. So I have Torah teaches us to seek peace, but to also be wise, as seen in Jacob's very careful and calculated approach when he greeted his brother Esau, right? So, Brother Rob, get that for us, and then I would like a couple people to maybe answer for themselves.
Proverbs chapter 16, verse 7. When a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him.
So that's a cut right there, right? I'm sure we all felt that. And that's very important. So when a man's ways pleases the Lord, in order to even please the Lord, we have to understand him, right? We have to know him, not understand him, forgive me. We have to know him and love him properly. In order to do that, we already know what that is. We read that last week in 1 John. We read that all the time. To abide by his law, statutes, commandments, right? To understand what's expected of us, which I've mentioned maybe 10 times today. But even through that, he'll make even our enemies to be at peace. Why? Because the Most High's will will be done. Just as Joseph's brother deceived and betrayed him, the Most High still showed him favoritism because he made it a point to try to please the Most High, right? In his ways, in his ways and in all of his doings. Did anyone else want to comment on that or piggyback?
That reminds me of a spike. Yeah, I remember those dudes that got thrown in that furnace and didn't get burned because they believed in the Lord. Like, I forgot they yeah, that was good.
Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael.
Yeah, that's a good point, Brother Dunbar. Thank you for that.
You want to go to it?
You want to go to that?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
It's your call.
We got time for it.
It is 4:41. I think the library closes at 3. I feel like they'll open the door at 5:30, so I still you got time. Only have one more section I want to go over, then we can go
at 3.
at 6. What did I say?
3.
I said 3?
Yeah. It's on record.
Yeah. Video.
Maybe I did say 3. Okay. It's 6.
Daniel chapter 1.
Daniel chapter 1.
Would it come after or before?
Daniel chapter 1.
Would it come after or before? Ezekiel, exactly Ezekiel. You said before? Yeah.
You sure it's Daniel chapter 1?
Was it 3?
Is it 3?
I think it's chapter 3.
Yeah, it is.
I think we started at like 13 and 14. Chapter 3.
The fiery furnace.
Okay. Okay. If we can get 14, let's just get 14 to 25. Why not? We just about done. Everyone there? Daniel chapter 3, we'll read 14 through 25.
Verse 14. I'm butchering some words on that. Never to kneel.
If you break the word up, it do sound like Nebuchadnezzar. They do. It's,
Never connect.
I used to think it was the Bendy goat, not the Bendy goat. Because you always be talking about Shadrach, Meshach, and Bendy goat, I always thought it would come on Bendy goat.
remember, that's their slave names too.
Verse 14. Nebuchadnezzar spoke and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if you be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, what's that word right there? Psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, you fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if you worship not, you shall be cast the same hour into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said unto the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fire furnace, and he will deliver us out of thy hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fear, and the form of his visage was changed. That's very young visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spoke and commanded that they should heat the furnace 17 times more than it was wont to be heated. And he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fire furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their hoses, in their hats, and their other garments, and were cast in the midst of the burning fire furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound in the midst of the burning fire furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and rose up in haste, and spoke, and said unto his counselors, Did not we cast three men bound in the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, True, O king. He answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the fourth is like the Son of God.
That's it. Yeah, that's, I don't think you can find a better example than that, brother. No more, to be honest with you. They hit on a lot. Thank you for bringing it out. A couple points with this. Like we mentioned before, right? There's a problem. Something is off if we don't get chastised, if we don't go through some sort of fire, because we all know gold is tried through fire, correct? So, in saying that, as we go through this fire, and if your enemy's not asking, damn, did not put this brother down, did not put the sister down, did not talk to her this way, did not talk to him that way, why they not reacting this way? Why they ain't hurting? Why they ain't this? Why they ain't that? Right? And it's because we're doing things to please the Lord, right? And we hope, if it's in His will, that we make it out the fire, alive, and even better than we were when we were thrown into the fire. So thank you for that, Brother Domar. I appreciate that. We appreciate that, rather. That was perfect. Last part, family. Subtitle, we can write it down, is Teachings on Justice, the Incident with Dina. And then we will conclude shortly after. So we're going to lastly go to Genesis 34. Well, I'm sorry, anybody else have anything before we move on? The last part? No? Okay. Genesis 34. And Brother Rob, you can get me verse 2 and then 25 and 26.
Genesis chapter 34, verse 2. Let's drop down to verse 25 and 26. Anybody else? Genesis chapter 34, verse 2. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her. He took her and lay with her and defiled her.
So, just to give context, this is when Dina, when the brothers of Israel, right, their sister was defiled, raped, violated, whatever word you want to use, just to give context. So now, we can go to 25 and 26.
Verse 25. And it came to pass on the third day, when they were sore, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simon and Levi, Dina's brother, took each man's sword and came upon the city boldly and slew all the males.
Right, so they were sore because we can remember they've just been circumcised, right? Because that was required from Jacob, right? As these men must have been in order to dwell here with us. Look, we need the land to be clean, so y'all gotta get circumcised ASAP. So obviously, considering that the circumcision, you know, the gentleman was sore. So the brothers salted, specifically Levi and Simeon salted appropriate, perfect timing to go ahead and try to destroy these men for what they did to their sister. Verse 26.
And they slew Hamor and Shechem, his son, with the edge of the sword, and took Dina out of Shechem's house and went out.
Cool. So my question, since Brother Ricky had mentioned it maybe 30 minutes ago, do you think, or do we all think, we can all respond, but I want to hit Brother Ricky first. Was Simeon and Levi's response justified? What do you think? Yeah, I know, but you had, remember I said, we were hit on that about justice. I mean, anybody can respond. I just wanted to give you a shout out real quick because you had mentioned something about it. So I wanted you to respond first if you want. Anybody?
Okay, real quick, I just have a question. How are we concluding that there was rape involved?
Took her and the father. At the end of the day, I do understand that that's an assumption. It may not be able to be proved as far as a definite answer. But when I read this, and anybody, please share, and I'll obviously prove it as well. But I just took it as Dina being defiled, which ultimately could mean that she possibly got raped by these men.
That's not how you see it? That's not a reasonable assumption?
You asking me that?
Yeah, that's who asked that question. That was you just now.
Yeah, I asked the question. Nah,
That's not a reasonable assumption?
No. What I'm asking, I'm only asking for one reason. Because I do think that she was raped. What I'm saying is there are a lot of people who suggest that that's not in the text. So I'm asking the question now to see like what you read.
I can't prove.
And real quick, when you said it says he took her, we just read Genesis 38, where it said Judah. He says it took her. It's using the same phraseology when it talked about Tamar.
Genesis 6 has took her as well, took her as his wife.
So simply just saying. Exactly. See that's not defilement though. This is the thing with defilement. That word is not even the same word for defilement. Like you know how when you read in the law where it talks about being unclean or if you're defiled by the dead or something like that. That's a totally different situation. But the word defile in and of itself, when you look behind it, is actually what gives the evidence of the rape aspect, because the word there is
the one they used or the one that should have been there?
What?
The defile, you said the word.
The Hebrew word.
The Hebrew word.
Right. It means in other verses they use force or more aggressive undertone is what I'm saying. But I just wanted to point that out because I know sometimes people they like to knick-knack on stuff like that.
Well,
no. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but defilement always means rape, because when it comes to a woman, defiled.
So,
It was,
was that one?
they just had sex. But she was with somebody else, that's why she was defiled. He didn't take it, I mean, it was.
No, I know, that's why I was mentioning to him.
That was to
That's-
the other point.
Yeah, that was what I was mentioning. See, that word that you just used, defiled, right, is not the same word here in Genesis 34. So you're mentioning the point that you could be defiled and then not be raped, which is correct.
So one could be forced and one could be consensual.
Yeah, this is totally different from.
But they're
from that.
both defiled.
But they're both translated in the Bible as defiled, and that's where it can get confusing.
So then that brings it to a point of, I can't prove that, like I responded, but as far as my understanding, I will correlate it with rape, but I also understand, well, I don't understand because I don't know, but could there perhaps been an instance where when you're circumcised, you must be healed for a certain amount of time, and these brothers just after being circumcised went unto her, which would be them being unclean and going into.
You have to remember that Shechem was uncircumcised before he even lay with Dinah in the first place.
So could that mean defilement, but still consensual?
But that's the other side of the argument.
I see.
The other side of the argument
I can't
said
prove that.
she was defiled not because of rape per se, but because of the fact that he was
Well, I
uncircumcised.
wanna, thank you for that. I wanna clarify to in here and the people on live, let's just not go with the speculation of rape just because there's a potential other reason that I must respect, but still nonetheless defilement, and the question still remains, for the specific definition of defilement, was Simeon and Levi's response to their sister being defiled appropriate and justified?
Now, if I could add one more thing
Okay.
before you get into the question. That's the reason why I raised that question. Because if you look at it from the standpoint of that she's raped, well, somebody might say that's an easy, understandable thing, right, as far as justifying it. Whereas if you look at it from a different point of view,
What, allowing her to be with a man that's not circumcised?
that's not circumcised, it could be different in the terms of somebody's judgment. You see what I'm
I
saying?
mean, that may be a personal opinion, but how is it different in the Most High's eyes?
Well, because there are plenty of times where people married other nations, right? And there was no type of severe consequence like you see happening with Shechem and his father and all the other people. Okay, so that was the only reason why I was mentioning that, because it could change somebody's answer.
Okay, let me try to.
No, you can still answer the question. You still ask your
Be
question.
fair, because that's a good point, bro. I respect that. I like that. I'm just trying to maybe word my question a little bit different. Considering that, because you raised a good point.
Yeah, that don't sound like a saint no way in the talk.
You can still ask your question how you asked it.
Okay. Yeah, but now you got me thinking about something else. I don't wanna just go off of it because I'm comfortable with what I'm already presenting. It's not.
Because both arguments change the entire context.
Exactly, so I don't wanna stick with
You know what I mean?
that.
And I guess we would have to establish what our position is on the context outside of what somebody else. You know, because the circumcision part is kind of secondary to the took and the foul.
Let me ask it like this
The
then.
question is that justified, especially during this time without a law present, you know, without Baton Rouge police. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm getting my dogs, we gonna get my sister and anybody in the way. You'll get chopped up.
But see,
But in effect,
yeah.
wouldn't it be, cause you know, the Bible said if a man forces himself on a woman, he will put to death. They put him to death. So apparently, them brothers knew he had did something he wasn't supposed to.
Well, yeah, that's why I wanted to make it clear that I do think it's rape, because when you look behind the word is not the same for defilement, which is what Ricky said. The word, there's actually, the word is translated 84 times. The majority of the time, the word is translated as afflict. So anytime, you afflicting, like that's not nothing positive, right? That's something negative. So I do want to say that, but what I am saying is, even though it says that, there are some people who don't necessarily take to that position, because you can be defiled by being with an uncircumcised man as well, like in that instance. So they could have been responding because of that, or they could have been responding because of this. But that's why I said I don't think you need to change the question. The question still remains the same. Do you
Well,
think
let me just ask it in another way. Simeon and Levi's emotional response to whether she was raped or defiled because this gentleman was circumcised when he went into her, was it appropriate for them to give an emotional response based off of the simple fact of after it happened, what happened with Jacob? Was that an appropriate response emotionally? Was the emotional response appropriate for them to execute with their sister being defiled? Yes or no?
Yes.
Why? Because it put Jacob in a really tough position, did it not?
Yeah, it did. I'm sorry.
So why was it appropriate?
Man, walking down the street.
Yeah, and
And
grab.
did his thing. You
know,
die.
And when I said, I'm gonna do my thing.
Next scripture. Justified.
Okay.
I think so.
She got
I mean, Jacob was a righteous man, and he had a close bond with the father. So I think it's safe to assume that the father wasn't going to let anything happen to, Jacob and his sons when, they got a mission to fulfill, which is, make a nation. So I personally feel like, they were justified.
Can you, Brother Rock, can you get us Genesis 49, 5-7, just really quick?
Oh, we're about to go to that.
Just so I can give my response.
Man, that's a good
all
one.
I'm saying is we understand.
That's a good one.
Wow, too, that might be a good thing.
What you say, John?
No, that's a.
Genesis 49, Genesis 5-7.
5 through 7.
5-7, and I'll give my response. Genesis chapter 49, verse 5 through 7. Verse 5. Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are their habitations, are in their habitations. O my soul, come not down unto their secret, unto their assembly. My honor, be not thou united. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they dig down a wall. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. So, it don't really matter what we think. Most I didn't like it. So would you change the answer?
Well, change the answer.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Knocking the boys off?
Mm-hmm. No.
But see now, I was about to raise that point because you see here that Jacob, he curses their anger in Simeon and Levi, and I know we coming into the truth. I don't know if any of you ever heard this explained from the people who teach the 12 tribes chart, but they tell you these are Haitians and Dominicans and all that. But what this is really talking about is the fact that in Genesis 34, the instrument of cruelty was the sword that they both took up and killed all the men in that city, right? So he said, cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. And because of this, Simeon and Levi are the only two tribes out of all of the 12 tribes. Those two are the only ones who don't have their own inheritance. When you looked at if you were to look at a map of how the 12 tribes had their land allotted to them, Simeon and Levi don't have a whole entirety of land. You'll have Levi here somewhere, then a little bit of Levi there, and a little bit of Levi here, and a little bit of Levi there, and the same with Simeon. You have a little bit of Simeon here, a little bit of Simeon there, etc. And that's because of the fact that he don't want them to be united together again in that way, because they could cause a lot of death and destruction.
Absolutely. So just for my response, I just put while justice is necessary, obviously the excessive retaliation, right, leads to Jacob's rebuke, which we just read. So my point was just some things we do off of an emotional whim. We don't really realize what could happen after our actions, right? What could happen, what will proceed after the action we just committed. You know, sometimes we don't really think about that. We want to react rather than respond. I struggle with that a good bit. Obviously, I'm getting a little better. I would think. But that's just something I want to kind of touch on because that's what I mentioned in the beginning. So a lot of the times we do things because of how we feel rather than try to think about it. Okay, how should I go about this? What will happen if I do it this way? What will happen if I do it that way? All right, now I'm going to respond rather than react. So now the question would be, how do we balance justice with mercy? Right? And although we know in Exodus 21, 23 to 25, we don't have to read it. It mentions eye for eye, tooth for tooth, right? But the Bible also mentions and warns against uncontrolled vengeance. So, but ultimately, Torah does command fairness and justice. And we also know true justice must be aligned with God's laws, not personal vengeance. And did anyone want to respond to that before I conclude with everything?
What was your answer? I don't remember hearing your answer.
Oh,
So what you have the
what I've done, well, my initial thought would have been I would have done the same thing, because I mean, you raped my sister, but Zeph brought up a good point, that I also have to consider. And if it's because of that, then I don't know how to answer that. I don't know. If a gentleman went into my sister and he wasn't circumcised, he's supposed to be a visual anyway, I'd probably condemn her more than anything. Well, I mean, before I condemn them, I mean, she's the one who allowed the gentleman in, right? If it's
consensual.
Yes.
That's
That's what I'm saying.
if
No,
it's consensual.
I'm not saying if it was rape, obviously not. Come on, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if it was consensual, I would have to deal with my sister. So, me trying to balance both scenarios is kind of difficult for me to give you an absolute answer. I guess I would say it would depend on what happened.
Love her and he took her on home and they went and got their sister.
And that's fair too.
He raped her and kidnapped her.
Well, she didn't hide her rape. She didn't say, oh, he raped her.
And we don't know that either.
Yeah, you don't.
Because I mean, how did his brothers know? I mean, how did her brothers know? Did she bring the towel? Did she bring to Jacob? Did she show her father the bloody cloth? Or did she went and run back home and say, I've just been raped? It doesn't say, does it? So we don't know. Because apparently Jacob didn't show no type of way until his sons did what they did. So you gotta consider all of that. It's not just a simple answer. That's why I said it's important to respond rather than react. There's a lot of things that go into it. A virgin was supposed to show her father proof, because he would then be, some of them would literally be on upstairs somewhere showing the cloth to the nation about how proud they are that their virgin daughter kept her virginity until marriage, right? So all of this goes into play. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. None of us was. All I can go is based off of what the Bible says, and based off what the Bible says, you got to consider at least two scenarios. And I can't give you just a definite answer. It just depends on what happened. If my sister got raped, yeah, I'm gonna deal with that. If she allowed somebody not a visual into her, I'm gonna deal with her. She will still have to keep the baby. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But I'm gonna have to deal with her accordingly.
consensual, I'm gonna let her deal with that. Unconsensual, I'm gonna deal with it. So I don't care if he was uncircumcised or whatever, that was consensual. That's on her, how she did.
Yeah.
So that was my answer. Yeah, I think that's enough as Genesis 5:09. I kind of wanted to go through one more section, but I understand that I've been talking for a while, so I will respect the time. I know our attention span, as humans, don't really last that long, so let's just end it with Brother Rock giving us Genesis 35:10. Yes, sir.
Genesis chapter 35, verse 10. And God said unto him, Thy name is Jacob. Thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. And he was called his name Israel.
Yep. So I challenge us this week, we don't have to answer. I just challenge us this week to think about two things. How does Jacob's journey mirror our personal journeys of faith and transformation? And I won't even ask the second point. Let's just stick with that one. I'll say it again. I'll ask it again. How does Jacob's journey mirror our personal journeys of faith and transformation? Just to reflect on this week before the upcoming Sabbath. We don't have to answer. Self-reflection, personal reflection. Now, as we were speaking, I want to just
Say it one more time.
repeat what?
That question.
Oh, how does Jacob's journey mirror our personal journeys of faith and transformation? And on behalf of Brother Will, I want to close out with two scriptures, and then I'll be quiet, and we can go ahead and do the closing. We'll do the closing prayer, and then I'll be quiet. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. This is something Brother Ricky had mentioned. No, who said this? Sister Moon, I think, said this. Okay, yeah. All right, 1 Corinthians,
Verse 13. There had no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able, but with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear.
I think that's self-explanatory. The Most High will not suffer you to be or tempt you with any temptation that you cannot bear. Everything in our way is for a reason. Everything in our way has a purpose. And in order to fulfill that, we must get through those things, try our best not to complain, not to fret, keep faith, and keep walking down that narrow path which only one man can fit at a time. And the last scripture I'd like to go to is Jeremiah 29:4-7. Because I see a lot, I've experienced it myself, even before I began my more entrepreneurial journey, that living in this world, in Satan's playground, it's very hard to maneuver, especially being quote-unquote black man in the world, not just America, but in the world. So we'll end with Jeremiah.
You said 29 what?
29, 4-7.
Verse 4. Thus said the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, unto all that are carried away captives.
All that are carried away captives. In this context, he's speaking specifically about our ancestors coming from Jerusalem to Babylon, but this can also refer to us, right? We're very scattered, and we happen to be in America, specifically Louisiana, one of the biggest slave ports in the entire world. Verse 5.
Whom I have caused to be carried away from Jerusalem to Babylon, build ye houses, and dwell in them, and plant gardens and eat the fruits of them.
So even in the land of our enemies, we are to build houses, dwell in them, plant gardens, and eat the fruit of them. We're also to do what?
Take ye wives, and begat sons and daughters, and take wives for your sons, and give your daughters to husbands, that they may bear sons and daughters, that you may be increased there and not diminished.
Yep.
And seek the peace of the city,
Seek the peace of the city,
whether I have caused you to be carried away captives, and pray unto the Lord for it. For in the peace thereof shall you have peace.
let us pray.
I got
Face the east.
2 prayer requests real quick. Brother Elder Larry Young.
Elder Larry Young.
Yeah, his brother is in the hospital with some kidney issues. So he's visiting him right now for that. And 2, I don't know if any of y'all saw, but on the news this past week, there was an elderly gentleman who is living in a house where he has no running water, there's no filtration system. The house is very much abandoned. It's basically condemned. Me and Brother Ricky, Sister Haver went by to see him yesterday. But that brother needs some serious help. He's old, blind, and barely can walk. He in around the wheelchair. Raymond.
I had met him sometime before we joined up.
Oh, okay.
He was rolling the wheelchair, when the wheels were collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we took him a wheelchair, and I had him part to this.
You gave him a wheelchair?
Yeah.
So one of the wheelchairs in the house he gave you.
Oh yeah? Wow. So yeah, this
Elder
is,
Larry Young and Brother Raymond.
yeah.
And I was telling y'all earlier this week on my mother friend that she lost her mother, and I know they've been dealing with it heavy. Pray for them as well.
Face the east.
I love my teammate Thursday.
Teammate?
Yeah, my teammate,
We call on the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, most omnipotent being in the universe who created the universe, as we set our hearts towards the east of Jerusalem, where your holy temple and your holy name reside, Father God. We ask that you bless Elder Larry Young, Brother Raymond, Brother Will's friend's mother, and also Brother Ricky's companion. Thank you for bringing us here today as a family, as one unit, as one congregation, to learn about your Torah, your laws, statutes, and commandments, Father. Thank you for getting us here safely, and I ask that you send us away safely as we, and if it's in your will, gather again next Sabbath. Most importantly, it is to keep your laws, statutes, and commandments as we continue to try our best to emulate your prophets, your wonderful angels, and your righteous ancestors, our righteous ancestors, excuse me. And I ask that we thank you in your name. Thank you for your one and only Son. Thank you for your prophets. Love.
Yeah, I'm ready. It's a song,
This